Commodity prices tend to be more volatile than many other prices in the economy because in the short term, both supply and demand are relatively price inelastic. Now, increasing commodity production takes time. If new crops must be grown, mineral exploration undertaken or oil wells drilled, and similarly, it can take considerable time to change consumption habits. And this sluggish response means that supply and demand shocks, whether it has an adverse weather event or a natural disaster, can result in large price movements. Well, joining me now to talk about commodity prices and more is Ted George, who's the founder and chief narrative officer of Cleo's Advisory in the UK. Good afternoon, Mr. George. Thanks for joining us on the program. So commodity prices have been very volatile this year. Which would you say have been the best and the worst performers?
Well, yes, it's certainly been quite a mixed picture. Commodity prices have actually been in general decline for the last couple of years, but they very much cancelled each other out. And it's really only the first quarter of the year where we saw the collapse in energy prices that pulled down the aggregate numbers. But if we look at top performers, as you'd expect, gold is up there, 28% up over the last 12 months. And that's because it is very much seen as a safe haven investment. Most commodity prices have slipped between, let's say, 5 and 10%. But among the worst performers, we have cotton down about 23%. And this reflects the fact that we've seen such a huge drop in demand for clothing. Who is going to buy a new dress if she can't go out and show it off? And so that is really coming through into larger stocks and a reduced demand for cotton. But of course, the worst performer by far, energy. Natural gas, crude oil down by over a third. And that's really the perfect storm, combination of the spat between Russia and Saudi Arabia, and also the coronavirus impact, the drop in transport and flights. That really has hit the oil price very hard.
Now, let's talk about Nigeria now. When you look at food imports, rice prices have surged, but maize has fallen. What is driving this difference?
Well, it's true. Nigeria is very dependent on imports of those maize and rice for the population. Rice, particularly for the urbanized population, maize for more of the general population in the region. And it's certainly the largest importer in sub-Saharan Africa of both rice and maize. Rice prices have gone up because there is real concern about what's coming up in the future. It's a staple all around the world. So a lot of that is due to stockpiling and people buying more to be ready for any crisis. But there is a concern, the disruption of the virus in the key rice exporting countries in Southeast Asia could mean there's a drop in supplies later. In contrast, maize actually has been fairly flat for the last 4 years as a price. And the recent price fall really reflects the fact that there's a very good harvest in prospect in the USA, one of the major producers of maize, but also the fact that there's been a drop in demand for meat. A lot of restaurants are closed, and that means less feedstock demand, less maize demand. So two different stories for the key imports of food into Nigeria.
I can imagine. Now, what about coffee? Now, we've seen the prices mixed or with mixed fortunes. What is driving the difference?
Well, we're seeing here with coffee prices, Arabica is up around 6% and Robusta down about 7%. And what that basically shows is how consumption patterns have changed. There hasn't really been a massive drop in coffee consumption, even though we've had lockdowns all over the world. A lot of people have switched to home consumption, but much of that tends to be the high-quality Arabica bean, and that's why Arabica prices have held up well. But Robusta, that tends to be lower quality, very often consumed in offices or in transport hubs. Of course, massive drop in footfall, and that's why we've seen the prices falling, along with a very strong crop in Vietnam.
Founder and Chief Narrative Officer of Cleo's Advisory in the UK, Ted George, thanks for speaking with us on the program.
My pleasure.